Hi, Jim. Hi, Jim.
I think. Good afternoon or good evening. Hey, AJ, Bob.
Hey, guys.
Hey, AJ.
Susan.
I think just no Melody tonight, right? But everybody else. So what are we waiting for? Just George?
And I think George was trying to get in a minute early, so here he is.
Okay. Hey, George.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. So I think we can call the meeting to order. You guys are gonna have to bear with me today, my first meeting I'm sharing, so let me know if I'm sure I'm gonna skip something or miss something, but I think we've got everyone we're gonna get tonight, because I think Melody emailed that she couldn't attend tonight. So, all right, let's pull up this agenda. So I think we were gonna start with the July 12th minutes, which I just sent out. What was that, this morning, I think, or yesterday? I can't
It was
even
this
remember.
morning.
All right, sorry, get it late. And let's see if anybody had comments. Anybody needed any corrections or have any comments?
All look good with me.
I had
All
nothing.
right, Bob, what do you got? Actually, just bear with me, Bob. I gotta, since I have, these were my last minutes that I'm doing, I'm just gonna pull them up so I can follow along. Let's see. All right. Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I just think in the terms of section 3, I guess through B to D, we're talking about our discussion
Yeah,
about Walter Tibbetts spending at very end of the fiscal year, and then we had to augment that budget. I think what my recollection of the discussion was that I thought that that was wrong. And we discussed whether there should be a policy of the FinCom or the town government that this should not happen. I've done a little research. I thought that we did have a policy because the law, or at least our practices, forbade that kind of spending outside of the budget. And I think that should be on the record that was said. And I also I'll just say that I did look into this, and basically spending outside of your budget without consulting with us is illegal. So that should be made clear. That's the law. That's the state law. I've been looking at a lot of documents of finance committee guidelines, handbooks, and I've looked into that issue particularly just for the minutes. I think we should say that I thought that this was wrong, that I said that, and also that we do have a policy forbidding that kind of spending. So I don't know how you would represent that, but
all right. So how about, let me try this maybe as an additional sentence at the end of C, because that's kind of Susie's sort of direct towards like maybe articulating a policy.
yeah.
So what if I said something like there was consensus among committee members should reinforce its policy. All department heads should communicate to the FinCom in a timely fashion if they are anticipating opening their accounts or something along those lines?
Well, I think that it would be something simpler would be that they're not allowed to overspend their
Right.
budget without consulting with us first.
Well, that's what,
Mhm.
isn't that what D says? States the policy should be department heads are not allowed to commit resources and engage vendors that will result in exceeding their budget. I think we said that. And maybe to the end of the sentence, the FinCom as a group agrees.
Yeah.
Or even take my name off it and just say the FinCom agreed that the policy should be.
There was consensus among committee members that the policy should be that department heads are not allowed to commit resources and engage vendors for services that will result in them exceeding their budget unless they have permission of the FinCom.
Yeah. And when we talked about this, I think everybody did agree, right?
I think so. I don't remember
I don't
hearing
know.
anybody.
I think it was a little watered down. The fact is, it's illegal to do this. And so just outside of the minutes now, let's be clear, not legal to do this. We make a recommendation to the town meeting, which is the legislature in our government, and they make an appropriation. That appropriation is the appropriation. You cannot exceed the appropriation without going back to town meeting or to the finance committee's reserve fund.
Yes, they're end running the whole warrant article and approval process when they do that. How can it possibly be legal?
That's the appropriation. That's the role that we play, is recommending the budget, which would be the appropriation, which is then legislated by the town meeting, because they're the ultimate authority in our government. But the town departments have no authority to overspend what's been appropriated in a given year.
I think D states it. I don't know if we need to change it and just say that restated the policy or restated the law.
I think D is very clear.
I do
And
too.
it's not watered down. I think it is affirmative. It's affirming the legality of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a good idea to attribute that to the committee overall instead of an individual FinCom member, because I that's my memory, is that we were kind of all nodding our heads and sort of in agreement that that should be the town.
I'll say just one last thing, which is we had a discussion and there was sort of an idea that whether we should have a policy in the future that would forbid this. And what my point was at last meeting, and I'll make it again, is we have a policy, but it's the law. It's the way we govern. And we would just have to make sure that people are aware, department heads are aware that they are constrained from doing this kind of thing. So
Bob, I have a suggestion. You know, when we do our budget season letter to department heads, where we include that form, at some point soon, we're going to draft that letter as a committee. Let's add a paragraph to that, or a sentence or two to that letter that reinforces that the town's policy is that department heads are not to.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great idea. I would definitely support that.
Okay.
That's all I have in the minutes. So
Anybody else have comments or questions about the minutes?
They look great. Nice job for your very last set.
Right.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of July 12th as amended, because we're changing 3D.
A second.
All right, so let's do our voting.
Arvanitis, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, I.
Okay, the motion passes 6-0. So Susie, the new Terry, correct? Am I remembering that correctly? Okay, yeah. I'll forward these minutes to Grace and just CC you on that email, and then I know you know better than any of us. Moving forward, I'll just leave to you. Okay. So next item, we had, I think, just one thing, if you guys can do me a favor and let me know if my connection point, I'm staying at a friend's house on.
Yeah, you're breaking up, AJ.
Okay.
Is it
Uh,
a Wi-Fi connection?
Yeah,
It's not, yeah.
I'm gonna stop my video. Can you guys hear my audio okay?
Yep, that sounds better.
Okay. All right. Sorry to do this, but I think I should stay on audio only. I'm staying in a friend's house on Nantucket, and I thought the internet was good, but it might not be great.
Yeah, better
So,
internet than Nantucket. That's good.
so I'll just stay off camera, at least for now. Okay. So I think we had started this conversation, or we were about to at our last meeting, kind of discussing some overarching kind of guiding principles for the committee, and we decided to table that discussion. So it's back on our agenda. I think, Bob, you sent a couple of documents. I assumed that was in the context of this agenda item. So we should make sure to discuss those. Maybe can we just sort of put some boundaries on this discussion? Like what kinds of guiding principles do we want to discuss today? Is it about, I mean, I was trying to think about this. Are we wanting to talk about some principles about our budget process? Are we talking about kind of fiscal policies? Are we wanting to talk about establishing some principles about how we communicate and collaborate with one another as committee members? Which of those kinds of, or any other subtopics under this agenda item would people like to have some discussion about tonight?
Maybe I could start off.
Yeah, please.
And we talked about this, I think, a little bit our last meeting, AJ, because I think I put this on there originally.
Yeah.
You know, thinking that this was the beginning of a new fiscal year for us all.
Mhm.
But thinking, let's hold off for a meeting to get you established so that you can drive this to where you think it should end.
Yeah.
And we talked about, I think, process as far as how we, well, I think you threw out three ideas, and I think at least the third one was a key one, at least in my mind, and that is how we all conduct ourselves as a team, focused on, let's say, agenda topics, make our meetings maybe more efficient. So if we're planning to meet for 2 hours, we effectively achieve our agenda in an effective way in those 2 hours. And I guess that was at least some of the thoughts, was we could probably be a little cleaner in the way we do our meetings and be more efficient and more productive. And frequently we hear a number of us can get up on our boxes and go over points that we've gone over many times before. I think we all have worked together as a team long enough. I think we know where we stand on a lot of these topics. So maybe focus more on new points as opposed to rehashing over the same points over and over again. So again, at least in my perspective, it's more about how we conduct our meetings on a week-to-week basis, or meeting-to-meeting basis. I guess we're not going to be meeting weekly.
Yeah. I mean,
I hope not.
yeah, I think well, first I'll just say one quick thing. I mean, I'll say two things. One is, in terms of your point about efficiency and the time of our meetings, I definitely think that we should be sensitive to the fact that different committee members have different commitments and sets of responsibilities that they're trying to balance along with serving on this committee. And so I think there are undoubtedly going to be times where we can't stick to it, but I do think the 2-hour meeting cap is one that we should really work to adhere to. And I think, end of budget season is sort of different, a little bit of a different story, but I felt like more often than not last year, we were exceeding that amount of time. And so I think as chair, I'm gonna try to be sensitive to that. And that's one of the things I'd like to sort of be paying attention to. Bob?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. That's wonderful because I get kind of dog tired after a couple of hours of our meetings. But I just want to say, I think for me, one of the obstacles, one of the things that caused us to have to revisit things, and it was because we didn't have all the time, we didn't have information from town departments. I think when we do write this cover letter requesting budgets from town departments, I think we should make it clear as well that we need all the supporting documentation and other materials well ahead of our meeting so that we on the committee can look at it and figure it out before it doesn't just land on us at the meeting. And then once we do get that information, I know that you can't get complete information because, for example, with the school, there's some things that they don't even, they can't nail down when they present us with their preliminary budget. But having some information, and I think we should maybe request, another idea along those lines is maybe to request for specific information before it comes in so that we get what we're looking for from a department. So I think that would facilitate our meetings to have the information in a timely way so that we could all review it individually and then collectively before we meet with the department heads. So I think that'd be some way to improve our process and make it easier for us to do a good job.
I just on that point, I might be misremembering this, and folks should tell me if they feel that. I felt like not last year, but so 2 budgets ago, it seemed to me that was the best year we've had, at least from when I've been serving, in terms of getting department budgets, documents to review in advance. I remember there was, I think, Becky, you sent like a dump of like 15 documents, I remember, in like a single email where you had kind of collected all the budget documents from all the departments that were able to submit their materials by our initial deadline, and you sent that all to us in a single email. And it wasn't the sort of like we get one, we get it from one department one week and then another department. Anyway, so I don't know if there was something about kind of how the process played out that year. If there was, and we could replicate that, I think that would be to the benefit of the committee. Because I think for that year in particular, I think for most of the departments there, we had lots of time to look at their document, and anybody who was curious to do that, I mean, I had ample time. And I think that was the case for some departments last year, but not I don't think consistently across all of them. Susie?
I also feel that departments, by the time we're talking about the budget, they'd have to go into their archives or go back somehow to establish what was the previous year's budget lines. So I will volunteer to fill that out in the form we send to them, the FY, in this case 23 budget numbers, so they can see them right then. And then when they go to fill out the next one, the proposal, it'll have that reflected.
Yeah. So you mean pre-populating the form with the FY22 budget amounts?
Yep.
I think that would be really helpful. Yeah. Anybody else have any other thoughts about this? Jim?
Yeah, maybe just something to think about. And the way I think we've done it the last couple of years at least, or maybe more than that, is we as a committee, there's the 7 of us and Becky, and then there's also other people from town that participate. So maybe just the thought is, we basically, at least the last couple of years, the people from town that are involved, they sort of participate in the various agenda items, which could be okay. Maybe it has been okay, but I know, was it the select board? Maybe some of the other committees have a different approach where there's a certain part of the meeting that's used for people to talk about any topics that they might have. So maybe think about changing, or if everybody's happy with the way it's been, maybe keep it the same.
Jim, I can tell you, I mean, I think my feeling about that is that for most of our meetings, the way we've been doing it works perfectly fine. We have a substantive discussion among committee members, and somebody from outside of the committee raises their hand. At some point we get to them, we listen to their input, and if it's appropriate to respond, we do. I think that works for the most part. I do think there have been a couple of meetings, and again, this goes back to the earlier point about respecting people's time, where we have these crazy jam-packed agendas towards the end of budget season. And I know they're important issues, and it's important for us to hear from our town members. But I do think that there are times where, I think we've got to impose at least a certain kind of cap on, you've got a minute to contribute or make your comment. Again, I'm not suggesting we make that the normal rule, but for certain meetings where going into them, we know it's going to be a long one, and we've got a lot of stuff we have to nail down and get a bunch of things completed by the end of the meeting. I think that is a fair and appropriate thing to impose. Susie?
I think that substantive discussion by the committee is really important, and it really does need to go first. And some people come to a meeting and they didn't know what we said the last time or the time before. And I think townspeople need to take that responsibility of being informed, and then it's likely that the committee has actually discussed what they're bringing up. They might disagree, but then they just can say they disagree. And then I have a different point to bring up. So I guess when we're ready for a different point, it can be.
Bob?
I just want to say, I think we're very lucky and fortunate to live in a small town where we have self-government, and we do have employees, of course, but we have a lot of volunteers, a lot of citizens in our government, such as ourselves. And I really think it's wonderful that we have public meetings where public comment is welcome. And if there's a problem with that, and you make a couple of cases where we restricted it because of the particular circumstances, AJ, yeah, then we deal with it. But I think as long as it hasn't been a problem, and in my opinion, public comment in the way that it's been managed here on the FinCom hasn't been a problem, I think we should always have a bias towards public participation if we can, because that's good. That's better for our democracy. So I don't see there's a problem with it. I don't think that we've had disruptive people that have gone on and on. We've had some people that have been interested in our committee's work, and I think that, like Mike Vitsky's here tonight, and we've had other people that have been to many of our meetings that seem to be pretty well informed and pretty respectful, and it's good. It's good that they come. Good they're keeping their eye on us.
Jim?
Yes, I would agree with what Bob said. Also, bear in mind that this is all going to shift rather dramatically if these online Zoom meetings stop. And Becky, maybe you can tell us when that is likely to happen. And sooner or later, that is going to happen, and we're going to go back to meeting in person at the town hall, which I think is going to has its own built-in problems, mostly because it's hard for people, our tax-paying residents to be able to come to these meetings if they're not online like they are right now. So this is all going to shift rather dramatically, maybe within this upcoming fiscal year.
George?
Yeah,
Oh,
just
Becky, did you want to say something about whether we're shifting? Yeah,
go back.
Yeah.
go ahead, Becky.
I just wanted to say right now, the legislation, like Jim says, goes into the new fiscal year. I think it's the end of March or April.
Yeah.
But the reason we still have Zoom available is the overwhelming pressure from communities to maintain the Zoom format because of public participation. So I think they kicked the conversation down the road, and they had the backdrop of new COVID numbers rising. But I believe it's potential that the reason they put the date out until then was to get preparation, give communities time to prepare for hybrid meetings, which would not eliminate Zoom, but would allow for the combination. The first legislation was very confused and restrictive and would have been a huge burden on the town, requiring so many people be at a public meeting and then be broadcast to the public. But I think they are working on those issues. So I do think that Zoom meetings will not go away.
So I was going to say, I'm pretty much in agreement with what everybody said. I think we're all on the same page. I mean, I just look back at last year and say, what do we want to do differently? What should we be doing differently? And I think we all know how to work together. I think we all work together pretty well, even when we have differences. I think the community has been participating to some extent, and everybody's been reasonable. And people want to air their opinion about things. I think it's great, and we get to discuss those, and that's how we figure some things out. AJ, you as the chair have discretion to control these meetings. So, I think we all trust your judgment. That's why we support you in this role. And so, when things start to get out of hand, I certainly think that you are the kind of person who's going to be reasonable in handling situations. Your goal of trying to keep the meetings, or Bob's idea of keeping the meetings under 2 hours, here. I definitely agree with that. We all have a role in that, and we all need to, try to be reasonable. I know I'm as bad as anybody as far as talking too much goes, but I'll certainly try to keep my comments a little shorter. But overall, I thought we had a good relationship last year. When we got to the end and we had some differences on the budget, we talked about them. We talked about how to present them at town meeting, and I thought we were pretty civil overall. So I think we got a pretty good committee the way it's set up, and I think we don't really have to veer too much off of what we did last year. Sorry about talking too long.
Susie?
I'd like to figure out about situation that comes up at the end, has come up at the end for the last 2 years at least, and it's the minority report. So I'd like to have clarity about what it takes to do that. And I'd like, if people are going to do it, to be doing it. I've worked on the finance committee report that we present to town meeting. I find it very informative, and I learn a lot from doing it. But if there's going to be a minority report, I think we have to come to an understanding, because it has snagged us in the last 2 years or more.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the biggest issue we had with the concept of a minority report the last 2 budget years is that the timing of it. I think there has to be an opportunity for the committee to read a proposed minority report and provide feedback. I'm not suggesting that we have it necessarily has to be edited by the entire committee. Obviously, it's a minority report. So, but I do think that as a courtesy, all committee members are going to need to have an opportunity to review any and comment on any document that is going to be kind of an official product of the finance committee that's sent to, disseminated at town meeting. And so I don't know if others have some thoughts about what it would require in terms of timing and process to produce such a document with enough time for the committee to review. Bob, you have some thoughts?
I do. First of all, I encourage other members. I personally have been doing quite a bit of homework, trying to understand what my responsibilities are as a member of this committee. And it's, you go to the state websites and go to other Mass Municipal Association and read the Joe Markarian handbook and all the rest. And there's a lot of guidelines, a lot of advice, but a lot of it's very vague. And but one thing that comes through pretty clearly is that the minority does have a right to express its views. So study up on, go to the Mass Municipal Association's Finance Committee Association is remarkable. I expect that I'll be going to some of their webinars this year. I did go to some last year. They have a diverse collection of members, and they put on some pretty good instructive webinars, and they deal with this issue. They deal with the issue of what the proper role of the Finance Committee is in basically a three-cornered government, a select board, town administrator, and FinCom, and a lot of these other issues that we deal with here, that we struggle with here, that we discuss. But as far as the minority reports, I have a pretty strong view that the minority has just as many rights as the majority to make its recommendation to town meeting. And it doesn't need the minority voted against the recommendations of the majority. So that's why there's a minority. That's sort of a self-explaining definition. And I think personally that having it reviewed by the majority doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But yeah, there should be a timely way that the process works. Our majority report, our finance committee report, did not come out till the very end of the fiscal year after we had completed our business, more or less. And so the minority report shouldn't be expected to come out in advance of that. We have votes. We know when the minority disagreed with the majority. We have a record of that. That'd be part of what the process is at town meeting if such disagreements do exist. Maybe they won't exist this year. Maybe we'll be in complete unison this year. But if we do have a minority view, I think that there's got to be a place for that to be expressed to the town meeting. That's what I've taken from my research.
George?
Well, I just want to react to Bob's comment about the minority report isn't necessarily something we need to see. We put together our budget proposal and we put together our annual report in public meetings. Everybody and anybody who wants to attend can be there and see it. And what we put together, we talk about as a committee and we vote on to present to the town. So we're showing our cards. The majority of the committee is showing everything it's done and all its data. So to say that the minority report, we don't necessarily have a right to see it, that just doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't seem fair to me because we're conducting ourselves in public and how we got to where we did and what we're going to show is right out there and up front. Why can't the minority report be? I mean, we should have a right to be able to explain our position on everything, and generally we are, but it would be nice to know which particular issues are going to be particularly important issues to be discussed on town floor because they're going to be triggered by the minority report.
I take your point. Something we need to discuss, I think. But yeah. I think we can figure it out. I really don't think it's a great conundrum. I mean, it's something that can be worked out.
Yeah, I guess I'm pretty much agreeing with what George had to say, but again, it comes down to the moderator runs the annual town meeting and he sets guidelines. And I think he's been pretty clear with us, at least since he's been in place, I think 3 years, about the process for managing a minority report. And, I'm not sure how it was done before, Paul. But again, the moderator runs the meeting. He puts a lot of effort, I think, into studying state process and law and the way things are done. and has been pretty clear with us on the process that will be followed, at least when he's moderator. And given us pretty good time in advance, giving us guidelines well in advance. And I would expect we right now know what the guidelines are for this coming year. If it says Paul will be the moderator for this next annual town meeting.
Jim Hemingway?
Yes, well, the problem is that the report that we give to town meeting is often produced at the last minute. We run out of time essentially towards the end of this whole process that actually begins shortly and will take us right up to town meeting. And that's the real problem. And then to try to fit in a way for the minority, which is usually Bob and myself and maybe Melody, to react to that and then come up with a sort of a written proposal and then submit it to all of you for a review it's very hard to do that at the last minute. And that was what was the problem this year. But it certainly wasn't the problem a couple of years ago when Bob and I stood in front of town meeting and gave our minority report. I don't remember having to submit it to all of you and for a review. So I find I am troubled by that request that we submit a minority report to you for review. We just don't really have the time for that.
Jim, can you clarify for me that 2 years ago, that wasn't a written document that was distributed at town meeting, was it? It was something you.
No, it wasn't.
Set of prepared comments that you or one of you read.
Yes, Bob, these are prepared comments that Bob and I had. We didn't have a lengthy written document of any kind. We didn't read them off. We simply stood in front of town meeting and gave our views in a short amount of time. I don't think it took more than 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah, so from my perspective, that's exactly what we did this year. I mean, I know you wrote out comments. I mean, I guess I thought the discussion about a minority report was a discussion about a document that is a product of a minority group within the finance committee that gets distributed at or in advance of town meeting to town residents who are attending town meeting. And I think from my perspective, if it's a document that is to be distributed, I think it necessitates some opportunity for FinCom as a committee to provide feedback and commentary on it to the authors of that document before distribute. I think 1 or 2 or 3 committee members, kind of writing out some thoughts that they are going to speak about at town meeting. That to me, that's
You're breaking up, AJ.
all right, I'll stop.
Your web connection. I guess the whales down there are interfering with broadband, if there is any broadband on Nantucket. Well, I think we're talking about 2 different things here. We're talking about a verbal minority report, which is what Bob and I gave, which we prepared in advance but did not write down, and then an actual report that's generated as a document and handed out to people. Those are 2 different things.
Bob,
you're on.
Just to pull back on this issue to the basics, the finance committee, as I understand it, its job, its role is to make a recommendation to the electorate, to town meeting on the budget. And we have a 7-member committee, and sometimes we have a divided committee on certain issues. And that means the majority view, which is supported by the majority's report. There might be some members that are in the minority that disagree with that. And then so the majority gives its recommendations, and it makes its recommendations to town meeting as it should, and that's its role, that's its responsibility. If there's a divided FinCom and there's a minority, it has a right to express its own recommendations. Now, when you make your recommendations, I don't recall the gist of the document offhand now. you support certain articles and support certain spending measures in the budget. That is, we, the finance committee, votes by majority to support these things. But if we disagree or we demur on some of those issues, we would just present to the town meeting why on those particular issues we did not vote with the majority. That's really what a minority report is. It's only that. So I don't get why that should be objectionable. I mean, it's just part of our process.
Susie?
I think that the late feeling that the regular report comes out too late is not taking into account that report is a summation of all the work we've done. Some of the numbers aren't ready to be printed or aren't ready to be fixed on paper yet until the end. That's part of the timing. But what the gist or the flow of what the budget report says is from the majority effort over the course of the whole year. The minority report does not have to be a rebuttal to specifics. It can be a proposal. And it is. It's saying we think this is what should happen. It doesn't have to be a line by line rebuttal of the majority report. And then I guess I'd like to review Paul Lyons' instructions on minority reports. I don't have them in front of me. I don't know where they're written, but I would like to see what Paul Lyons' instructions were.
Becky?
Yeah, I was just confused a little bit about Bob and Jim saying that they couldn't put together their minority report until after the FinCom's annual report was completed. The majority of the annual report that is being called the majority report is factual. It's all, but it includes the decisions made, and those decisions are being made as you move along, a lot of them near the end. But so you guys already know what you've supported or not supported. So your report could be written at the same time as the annual report from what I see. And it would also, the bulk of the work in the annual report is data collection and verifying interest rate, not interest rates, but tax rates and things like that. It's a tedious job, and it's not really about the whatever conflict might exist on a specific warrant article. And I think it'd be really helpful if members of, people that feel that they are a minority participated in that process, because it's a lot of work. And it would be a learning experience for everyone. And I think it could give you the background and the tools to, fully ground whatever report you felt you needed to make. That's all.
Jim?
Susie, the possibility or the probability that a minority report can be given is not really up to Paul Lyons. It's in our bylaws. It's written right into the bylaws. So it's not a question of whether he makes a decision of whether he's going to allow a minority report for whatever reason. It's there, and when we have a right to do so.
I didn't dispute that. I just would like to read what he said. He's talked with many other towns, and he has a sense of what role it can play, but not, he never said he was the arbitrator of whether there is or is not a minority report.
Yeah. Well, Jim, did you want to? Jim?
Yeah. I just responding to Jim. We all agree. I think we always agree as a team, and I think we agreed as a team going into this last annual town meeting that we support an annual report. We all understand the value and the need or the value of something like that. If someone so chooses to put it together, it's only about the process and how it's implemented is where Paul comes in as a moderator. Moderator has to have some kind of guidelines in order to run the meeting. And he's just laying out, okay, this is what we need to follow in order to present a minority report. Just like he issues or sets up guidelines for the rest of the meeting. So again, we're all on the same page. We all, I think, agree on the value of a minority report. It's just a question of how it's implemented. And I'd also say, yeah, the same thing. We're getting together every couple of weeks. We're making decisions that ultimately end up as budget decisions or capital investment decisions or whatever, cash, how we're going to spend cash, how we're going to spend our stabilization funds. We're going through that process meeting by meeting. And we do come to some agreement. And sometimes there's a minority view that disagrees with those decisions. So it's not a last minute thing. This is, again, what I think what Susie was alluding to. By the time we start doing the crunching on a final annual report, the same thing can be going on with a minority report simultaneously.
Bob?
Yeah, I just want to say.
I think we should just also kind of wrap this up in the next couple of minutes, but go ahead, Bob.
But I just want to say, look, I don't have any fixed ideas about how this should be done, Jim, Susie. Last year, we were told we should have a written minority report at the sort of end of the day when we really didn't have any time to do it. I don't think there's any problem with, we all know, as Jim said, as Susie said, we vote on these things on a week-to-week basis. We're all involved in it. If we do dispute an issue that the majority supports, we've expressed it in our meetings. So it's not going to be surprised what our reasoning is for not supporting a specific vote. So it's just a matter of listing it out. If that's what the committee wants us to do, and we have a right to express ourselves in a document, then we'll just express ourselves in a similar fashion as to we did at our meetings. It's not, I don't have an objection to that. I don't know if anybody else does, but it would work for me. But this year, we weren't told about that kind of scenario until the very end when it was impossible to do. So I would say going forward this year, let's get this sorted and let's come up with an amicable way for us to possibly deal with the unlikely event that we don't agree on everything, but we'll see.
Jim?
Yeah, I know you're trying to wrap it up, AJ, but just
Okay.
to Bob's point, and I think, AJ, you alluded to this earlier, and this was part of Paul's guidelines, is that the finance committee just needs to have time in a meeting, in a formal meeting, to review the minority report, just like we review the annual report. So that's the timeline, is we need to be able to have a meeting, and that meeting, of course, has to happen sometime in advance of the annual town meeting.
Right.
Where we have a chance to review it.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not suggesting that the finance committee has to vote on whether this minority report is going to be
Approved.
disseminated or not. Obviously, it's a minority report. I hope nobody was thinking that I was suggesting that. But I do think that that all of us as committee members ought to have an opportunity to respond, provide some feedback, whether the minority is persuaded by any of that or not. I just think it's a good practice for that document to be presented to the committee, if one is to exist, in advance, and that we have an opportunity to discuss it. That's all I'm suggesting. Becky?
I guess I'm feeling, given the way you guys are talking about it, you vote on the annual report that you're calling the minority report. The main reason for voting is just to assure that all the information that's being shared there is factual. If the report is more opinion-based, then the opinions are not as subject to the vote. But I think assuring the community that, and each other, I know Susie and George have, been in horror at different moments, realizing they made a mistake in the data, and then they scramble to correct it. I think it's just an assurance that it's been reviewed by the board, and that it's, you know, the content is factually based. And the opinion parts are outside of that kind of the vote, because there's different divergent opinions, and that's not really, you know, that's not the subject of the vote. I think it's more about the content being accurate.
Yes.
I'll be very brief, but I want to just rebut that if I may. Look, a lot of what we did this year, a lot of what was in the town report were opinions, like, you know, how are we going to deal with our reserves? How are we going to deploy our reserves? That, with the number of dollars in the reserves, was factual, but the way they would be allocated was not factual. It was a way, the considered judgment of the majority, that it would be allocated in a certain way and approved by a majority vote. There were certain people on the committee who did not agree with that allocation, who wanted it to be allocated differently. That is the essence of our disagreement on that particular subject. It was not the only one. That's not a matter of fact. The fact is that the balances, the recommended distribution of those balances was not fact. It was an opinion, the judgment, the best judgment of the people on the committee that voted in favor of it. That is something that there's room for disagreement about that in our committee, and we should be able to express that at town meeting.
Okay, I'm gonna, Becky, did you have something you needed to say in response, or?
Just that, again, I would go back to the information and a report, you know, if the minority is going to present a different recommendation that they would like a different allocation, again, you would just want to assure that their calculations of their preferred allocation was correct. And that's all I'm talking about, Bob. I'm not talking about the opinions behind it. It's just checking the data.
Okay, so I'm going to move us on to the next topic. I think just to sum up here, I think we're all in agreement that every member of this committee is going to have an opportunity at town meeting to articulate their point of view. If it's a point of view that diverges from the majority recommendations, there will be an opportunity, as there was this last year, for people to articulate those viewpoints. I think there is ongoing discussion that we'll have, and we'll make sure to flag this in advance of our end of our budget season, that if there is going to be a written minority report, there's going to have to be some process for doing that we're going to need to discuss. We'll make sure that happens well in advance of the end of this budget season. I think that that's sufficient to move on. The only other point I wanted to make just in conclusion is just, I think I've been thinking a little bit about this, but as a reminder to everybody that I feel confident saying that every member of this committee is making a good faith argument about on any given topic, is making a good faith argument about what they believe is in the best interest of the town. And I hope that in the way we communicate with one another during our meetings and the way we communicate with each other at town meeting, that we all feel that way, and that we all respect one another at that very basic level. That even where we disagree on any given point, the issues that we're raising come from the perspective of what one believes is in not their personal best interest or reflective of some sinister bias they might hold, but it's their view about what is beneficial to the town. I feel that way about people who vote differently on our issues, and I hope you all feel that way about one another. And I think we should just sort of respect that notion and as we move forward this year. Okay, I think what we should discuss next is we've got another FY22 expense report. Is this the final report, Becky, or is this just?
No, it's not final yet. The school is still open, and there's still a few outstanding invoices
Okay.
waiting to come in.
All right, so I think everybody should pull up their copy of I think it was July 12th. No, it wasn't July 12th.
26th.
26th.
Yeah, on the bottom, it's July 26th. I think that's the most recent one I'm looking at.
Yeah, and
That's
the
one.
email was sent on the 26th also from Becky.
Yeah, July 26th at 2:11 is where you should find it.
Right.
Does everybody have it open? Do
Uh,
you want me to screen share or are we good? Just if we could just follow like our own, I'm just working off a laptop, and so my ability to screen share is going to mean that my windows are going to get ridiculously tiny. So
Did you need me to screen share? I'm
oh,
s-
if you can, Becky, sure.
Let me, okay. Might take me, I'm sorry, I had to run, take care of something in the building.
No problem.
If you could give me just a minute, I'm sorry.
Okay. George, did you have a first?
Well, I was just gonna ask when Becky opens it up, the first thing I wanted to ask about was there was 5 separate lines that had negative balances. 2 in general government, and then 2 in school, education, and then there was one like minus 49 cents, which I don't, I'm not interested in, but I'm just curious, A, what caused those to go negative and how could they go negative? I guess are my 2 questions. So I thought we should look at those 4 lines first. That would be my request.
And George, were those outside of the 13 or so lines that we reconciled at last FinCom meeting with our?
The educations were, I think, building and electricity, I can't remember. I don't remember all the things that were on that list, but the 2 in general government are select board expenses. And it looks like there had been a FinCom transfer into that account, but it's still negative. And then the other one was electricity, which I think we also had made a transfer into, but it's still negative. So I'm thinking bills showed up after we did the transfers, but I really was surprised by the select board expenses being so large. And maybe, Becky, you explained it and I just don't remember.
Well, it happened, I think, after the last meeting, but this is in process of being corrected. Let me see, double check. The line, it should have gone into the insurance line.
Okay, so it's just a misposting.
I guess, Becky, can you just clarify for me that the transfers that we voted on at the last meeting,
They're done.
are they done and are they informed in this document? Are they informed?
Yes, they are.
Got it. So, yeah.
Yes, they
You
are.
can see it on the FinCom transfer line, AJ, you can see
Okay.
the big negative
Yeah.
or the big
got it.
amount, but
Yeah.
So that the $1,500 needed to go against the insurance line, and it was posted to the wrong line.
okay, that's good.
And then the electricity, I think there was a similar problem. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one. I think that was also supposed to go somewhere else.
If it's resolved on the next report that we're going to get, the final report, then you don't need to explain it to us. We'll see that it disappears. If it stays negative because it's not a misposting, then we would like to know.
Yep.
But I'll assume it's a misposting at this point. We won't see it there the next time we get this report. But yeah, the elementary school was a little of a surprise. It was a big surprise.
Let me go to that line. Okay, so I think what is going on there is there are so the school is typically the last, they're sorting through all their grants and balances with their sped circuit breaker. So in the end, that will be 0. But she is in communication with the new finance director in making those adjustments. So what you're seeing is a work in process. And school choice is different. School choice is, it's a line that we don't have any control over. And that number will be then because it went over the information that we were given by DESE, that amount will be reconciled in the recap process, and it will be charged to the town in the recap process and will reduce our free cash. But that's nothing we can do anything about, and that's not a fault of the town's budgeting. Any questions?
Thank you, Becky. Those are good answers for those, or at least reasonable.
All right, did anyone have any other lines that they needed to or wanted to ask about? Any other comments?
I just have a question.
Yeah, Jim?
Becky, when do we think we would see the final?
Probably in September.
Okay,
It's, because of the interdependencies of getting the reports from different people, I'm hoping that, the school will be able to wrap its stuff up, and we're close, we're in-house, in town hall, there is not much more to be done, but it's the school that has the most complicated line items.
like school transportation, is that one that we would expect to see something get populated in there?
Oops, sorry, I went the wrong way, didn't I?
Yeah,
Okay, school transportation. Actually, so we received the bill, we received the bill for school transportation last week for $86,000. And I was given a copy of it. I reached out to Doug Slaughter. He's saying that I think this is a result of an escalator on fuel. He is aware that, it's over the budgeted amount. I told him we had no way, that we had not gotten the bill to the end of July, and our transfers were done in the middle of July, and that we did not have a way to address the issue. And he is taking it under consideration and said that he will find a way potentially for the region to pay that overage. And the accountant is going to move ahead and pay the $84,330. If there is something else that the town can do, we might discuss that further with Doug, but that's where I left it with him last week.
All right, so for at least for now, it sounds like our expectation is that we're going to spend that exact amount and that we don't anticipate the overage on that line.
Right.
Okay, good. All right, any other comments about the expense report?
I think Jim has.
Tim Hemingway, sorry.
What- Yeah, no, I have a question that's related, but not particular to the expense report.
Go ahead, Jim.
Becky, I just wanted, if you could give us a general idea of what the free cash amount was likely to be for this, for the end of, at the end of last year. Do you have any, I know that's a floating number as well, but I was curious if you had an idea of what it might turn out to be.
I did do a rough estimate, but it was when we did the transfers. And I think at that point I was guesstimating about 150,000, but it might be a little more.
150K.
Yeah, because there are some items that in talking, I was speaking with Walter Tibbetts today, and let's go to his line items. Okay, and I was inquiring about, see the line items, these three down here that appear to be unspent. And I was asking him why they were unspent, and he said that they weren't unspent, that he had reached out to make the purchases for those items back in January and has still yet to receive delivery. And he has alerted the accountant that the items on these lines have been ordered, but they have not yet come in and might not come in for a few months, so that these will be carry forwards.
So in that scenario, Becky, we haven't actually paid for the items because we only pay for them when they appear. Is that, or they don't get
Correct.
booked?
We are not allowed to pay for products and services in advance.
I see.
Municipal accounting requires the accountant not to pay until receipt.
Becky?
Yeah.
So how come that, shouldn't this money go back into free cash and have a different appropriation for if and when these items are received? And
No, because he made the purchases at the time and timely for the appropriation. It's the delay, it's the COVID continuum of delay in services.
Right, so it's okay to roll that account over. That's a good. that's
Yes,
good.
it's responsible because town meeting approved these items. They were, they have been ordered and they will appear at some,
I understand a
in
lot.
the
I
next
just thought it
few
was
months.
against our accounting practices, but yeah.
No, it's within the correct accounting process.
Susie?
So is there any official statement that gets made when an account becomes a carry forward? Or it just happens because all the pieces that you mentioned, the town meeting approved it, the order was made and it hasn't been delivered, that automatically makes it a roll forward account?
Well, the information has to be given to the accountant.
But it's an exception to the general practice,
Well,
which is that money usually is returned to town coffers.
yes, if it's unused, but this is not unused money. These monies have been dedicated.
It's just a
by
delay in
purchase.
delivery.
Correct.
It would go to free cash if the vendor said, we can't send you the product and we're not going to send you the product.
Yes.
Then it wouldn't be a
then it will go to
purchase.
free cash.
Okay, any other items to discuss from the cost report? Okay. Going once. Okay, let's move on then. Becky, would you mind taking this off screen? Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so next up, I just put a couple of update kinds of items on the agenda. I'm not sure if there's much to discuss here, but was curious if there had been any new updates about scheduling or process for this regional school assessment committee that's being formed. Is there any news about that? We've got two representatives, right? Is it George and Bob? Is that correct? My memory correct? Yeah.
Have either of you heard from the school? Because I submitted your all three emails, including Melissa, and
But we did. We were, I'm sorry, Mike Morris reached out to both of us and said, thank you for participating and I'll schedule it because it's the summer and people are on vacation. I'll let you know. He figured, Bob, I think he said late August is what he said in his email.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and so
nothing-
Bob, just so you know, and everybody else, I might as well just tell you, I'm going to be out of the country in the whole month of October. So I'm probably not going to make a lot of those meetings, Bob. So you're on your own, but I mean, he might start late August and we might wrap it up in September and I'll be around in September, but I am not going to be able to attend meetings in the month of October.
Where are you going?
Nepal.
Oh,
What?
Awesome.
fabulous.
We're trekking up to Everest.
Great,
Wow.
excellent.
George,
Yeah,
are
we're
you
going to
serious?
track a friend of mine's done this before and he knows people there and he speaks the language. And he said, I'm going, you guys should come with me. So me and my friends, my hiking buddies and back outdoor country.
George, I have done that trek. I have trekked from Jiri in eastern Nepal to Everest. Are you going to Gokyo or are you going to the Everest?
Gokyo is my goal. I mean, I want
Yeah.
to climb Gokyo Ri.
Yeah,
Have you climbed it?
Yes, I have. I got to the top.
Oh,
It's,
I'm gonna reach out to you then, Jim. I
yeah.
definitely want to pick your brain.
I would be glad. I have plenty. In fact, I wrote it up. I can send you a journal. I kept a journal of my trip. I know this is a little bit off the finance committee, but I'm amazed. But I'd be delighted to talk to you about it because it's something that is very near and dear to my heart.
Oh, that is great, Jim. I really appreciate that. We'll be talking.
Okay,
Thank
that's
you.
good.
Yeah, it
All
came
right.
out of the blue. My friends were going and I kind of, I thought it was kind of ridiculous to spend a month in a foreign country and the cost and blah, blah, blah. But my wife basically said I'd be crazy not to go.
Yes, you would be crazy not to do it. Although,
Yeah, that's what
although
everybody said.
be prepared because it is a difficult trek, and I'll tell you why when I talk to you.
Okay, that sounds good. I mean, we're all in good shape for sure, and we're always keeping in good shape. We're going up to Maine. We're gonna be backpacking for 5 days. So, we're in good shape, but it's kind of a warm up. But thank you, Jim. I'll definitely talk to you.
Okay, that's good.
All right, well, that's exciting. To send us a picture or two from Everest.
I will.
George, I heard there was broadband in Nepal. You should be able to tie into our meetings.
I'm not bringing my PC, so if you don't mind me talking on my phone all the time.
There is some wireless, especially on the near Lukla, which is the airport that many fly into. There's quite a bit of wireless available. It isn't quite the same as it was when I was there, when there was none of that. But yes, you will be able to recharge your smartphone and maybe even get online.
Yeah, no, I was told that. I was told
Yeah.
that I'm going to have a lot more connectivity than I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Lauren.
All right, Bob, if there are any meetings in October that you're not able to do for any reason, just give us a heads up. I'm happy to step in if there's a meeting where you're both not able to attend, but otherwise you'll represent us on your own in October.
I assume that Mike won't be getting this together till sometime September, but we'll see what happens.
And Melissa's on it too, so.
Yes. Okay, so that's the update on the school. And then, I don't know, Becky, I just thought, are there any important updates or news to share about kind of capital projects? I just thought I'd put this on the agenda in case.
Sure.
there were-
Well, today we just made the final call on the culvert. We are unable to proceed until next year. We're submitting the letter of extension for the grant to DOT and making arrangements, trying to make the best decision on whether we need to store the culvert in town or not. It's just not doable with starting the 21st of November. It would be reckless to pursue that. And the one piece of information that's very helpful and reassuring for the delay is the culvert bridge inspection done by the state this spring shows no further deterioration. It is still stating it has to be taken care of, but we have not slipped into a higher or more severe level where that would provoke doing it at all costs and any measure. So with the background of that inspection report, we're making the decision to do it next year when it can be done at the right time of year and safely without endangering people on Wendell Road as the local detour. So that's one big piece. And it's also complicated by the culvert project in Leverett was another concern. They have been telling me for months that their project will happen the end of August, maybe September. It is, we're almost at the middle of August, and they can still not give me a date of when their project will be done. that culvert will shut down Shutesbury Road and shut down the S curves as an access to Amherst for Shutesbury and anyone coming from Route 2. And that'll be shut down for at least 2 weeks.
Where's that culvert going, Becky?
You know where the electricity lines go through and
Sure.
you see the dirt bikes?
Oh, yeah.
No, that's wrong. It's up around the corner right near number 6 road.
Okay.
And if
Oh.
you look over, you know, when you're driving by, you can kind of see it's been.
You can see where the brook
dug
goes
out.
under the
The
road.
brook is under the road.
Yeah.
All right.
Is-
What
is-
about their bridge project down in North Leverett Road? That's another one, right?
That's in Montague.
That's Montague. I see.
Yeah.
Did the telephone lines or the electric lines or any of that get moved? Did they?
Yeah.
The prep, of it,
Yes.
they're all moved. That's all done.
No. Right, Tim? It's not all done. The pole was moved. The electrical lines, I believe, are moved, but the
Yes.
Verizon and the MLP lines are waiting tediously through the normal process to get moved. I spoke with Gail about it and she said she wanted to, you know, they could, if we could get Verizon to act, MLP has the capacity to get it done within probably, you know, within a few days.
Yes, that's true.
But they are waiting to get the information through the normal channels to really understand what the normal process is.
We're ready to move at any moment.
Yeah.
It just depends on, is this going to cost the town more, this delay?
That's what we're working on figuring out, where the one thing one potential cost could be storage costs for the culvert. So we're looking at moving the culvert into Shutesbury.
The components that have already been pre-made, precast, so to speak.
Right, the precast cement,
Mhm.
47 feet, 11 feet by 11 feet.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're gonna take up some space.
Well, you know, it's too bad. This is a perfect time to do it because the water level is extremely low and, you know, they don't want a lot of water. And if it's done next spring, it may be a wet spring. Of course, we don't know what the weather is going to be like, but drought or floods, you know, it's crazy what's going on right now.
Yeah, the spring is off the table.
Oh,
There
it's-
are too many issues, including Concom's. There's a permitting requirement for the lake to begin their drawdown by April 1st. And
Mhm.
that you couldn't do that
No.
and then try to do the culvert at the same time.
Mhm.
So does it look like it's proposed for August or September of next year of 2023?
Yep.
And who was it? M&S Construction. They're willing to hold still by the terms of the contract that
We still have, yeah, the contract, they have not, we are still holding by the contract, yes.
Okay.
Regarding including the price.
Yes.
Including.
Yes.
Okay.
School roof engineering, Becky, what's going on with that?
The RFP is going through a review right now, in parallel to 2 different conversations with MSBA. Our legislators have not given up the fight. They are still pushing for funding. But when we got the news that they wouldn't do the roof, our legislators, Joe Comerford put in an earmark for the town of Shutesbury for the purpose of the school roof for $200,000. And as you guys have probably heard in the news, the earmarks have all been frozen and will likely disappear until that arcane legislation that requires a surplus to be distributed to all the inhabitants of the state. So she is trying to find, you know, other money, but at this point, it looks like there is still active discussion between Natalie and Joe with the MSBA director about Shutesbury. They are making it a case in point of the program not effectively servicing communities that need help.
But they gave us the thumbs down and now we're putting an RFP out for bids for the.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. While this battle continues.
Did they send us a rejection letter that included any kind of explanation on the criteria that determined their decision, or?
So this year, their criteria moved to 30 years and we're at 29.
Okay, so it was the age thing, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, anything on next steps for the library that we need to know about, or?
We've been working on, well, we're doing a wetlands delineation for the whole 20-acre site. And then the Concom has tied, yeah, so, and then so they want to know if they have jurisdiction over the Westover Air Force Base remote site on Lotto 32 or not. So we're settling that issue by using consultants that are being hired at this point with ARPA money.
Okay. What was there like, I'm trying to remember, I thought there was like an initial drawdown that was going to happen at the beginning of the project for the purpose of developing the
I think they're
Cost line,
going out for the OPM. So right now, the first $1 million is coming in the next couple of days, and the accountant is setting up appropriate accounts for it. And the treasurer is setting up an interest-bearing account for the $1 million to go in. At the same time, the town will be turning over $300,000 for that account from the funds that were allocated at town meeting.
Got it. Bob?
Thank you. Just as a procedural thing, does the library, which is a semi-autonomous thing, as far as I understand it, will they get a deed to their lot from the town as part of this process?
No, the deed will stay with the town.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking is there a possibility with all the stuff that's happening over there with the wetlands delineation and the Concom that the culvert could get stuck in the back somewhere there and maybe put on the site, because it's a big site, 21 acres. Is there room for the culvert there?
Oh, the concern is the library is not the ideal spot because you want to put it, you'd have to put it in the front just off the driveway, and we likely will be beginning, we could be beginning construction before next September.
Yeah.
But the site that, there's 2 sites under consideration. Highway said that there's too many trees in the way for the cranes on the only area they have in the back. So I spoke with Lenny Zerwanka, who is our new fire chief. He's still there. We still have to resolve the contract, but he has the appointment contingent on the contract. But I was speaking with him, and he is happy to have the concrete structures placed on the west side near where the ice skating rink used to be, right off the parking lot.
Makes sense, yeah.
He feels we can, because that way the cranes can stay on the pavement and we don't have to worry about the cranes crossing
Right,
on
okay.
soft ground.
Yeah, right.
So that seems to be the ideal location, but he raised the concern about that will mean hiring cranes additional times for the placement and then to move them. So we're waiting to get more cost information from MAS about all the costs for cranes compared to storage, compared to, So we're looking at, and then the highway superintendent has recommended that we put all the structures on the slope by the side of the dam. We're gonna go look at that location. It looks, I mean, I think the slope would be dangerous, but we're gonna go evaluate that and see if that has a possibility, because that would eliminate the need for renting the cranes additional time.
Mhm.
Lot to solve.
There's plenty of pretty good level land by the dam there. I don't see why you couldn't put them there. And that would save us the hassle of having the cranes, as we learned very quickly with, on the MLP, when we had to hire a crane to, to drop in the hut. They're rather expensive little toys to, bring into your town. So,
Well, the added thing, I'm not sure if you're aware of, Jim, is the flat area where the dam keeper would park is, it turns out it's not the town's, it belongs to the abutter, who for some reason wants it back. So there's now no trespassing signs along there, and we can't use that area.
oh,
Maybe he'd agree to let us use it for this short time.
That's an idea. I will talk.
It would be a nice parking area for him. He could pull right in there and park his truck,
Yeah,
Inside the
that way,
shelter. A garage.
that way he wouldn't
Yeah,
have to
basically.
use his boat to keep people off the property. We could put all these cement structures. That's a great.
hmm.
I can-
Well, I was thinking of being able to put them right on the north side of Sawmill River, down by the dam. Not so much on that parking road that goes in where the dam keeper usually parks, but rather down right by the water side, so to speak.
Well,
I
I
mean-
think the highway department and other people are gonna go down and look at it.
Yeah, we're gonna look at
Yeah,
that area,
okay,
Jim, and
yeah.
evaluate.
Well, and there's also the state land. The state has a lot of land. They have that big field, the something Carroll Field.
Yeah, but it's not near the.
Quite a ways off.
The site, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little down the road, I know.
Yeah.
I had a question, if we can move on.
Yes.
Sure.
Go ahead,
Back
George.
to the library. I saw that the library is putting together a library building committee. And I was wondering if that if that committee had been, everybody's been appointed, and if there was a representative from our committee.
Okay, so the appointments that they have asked for letters of interest from the community. They are, it's not a select board member and a finance committee member. It wasn't structured that way. But if people have interest, they should submit a letter of interest to the library. The library trustees will be reviewing the letters of interest and making selections and bringing them forward to the select board. But you're right, George, that was your role 20 years ago.
Yeah, but it was different because we never really proceeded with building a library.
Right.
Becky, would you be attending all those meetings and be able to keep the finance committee abreast of what's going on in the meetings?
I will be attending some of them. Mary Ann is the person that's attending most of the meetings, but I will be attending a lot of
I'm
them.
just wondering, to what extent does the finance committee be involved or at least informed about the progress of the library?
I think at this point, the focus is more on, people interested in libraries, and they identified like the different roles that they needed, communications, a clerk that would keep track and things like that.
Design.
And there has been, if you go to their site, you will, or whereas I think it's on the library page, but there is a charge was written and a definition for the work of the library building committee, and that information is available online.
Okay, thank you.
Susie?
I think it's important to recognize that the money is set, and the piece that needs to move forward is how the building is designed to meet the library programming that's planned, that's already stated. And so everybody in town will be very interested to watch what's happening, and that's where the library information page will be useful.
Jim?
Becky, is there an update on the B9 test bore site cleanup?
Okay, that is where, because the Concom is actively interested in knowing whether they have jurisdiction over that process. The work that has taken place so far is the wetland delineation, which is started but not complete.
Mhm.
And then there will be, we also have contracted with Fuss and O'Neill to do the exploratory additional borings to determine whether there will or will not need to be any additional cleanup. So it's in process.
So there's some doubt as to whether that B9 site has to be cleaned up?
The initial boring sample was, there were two, I believe, two readings. One was at 100 and one was at 85 parts per trillion. 100 is the exact minimum.
Yes, I know.
So if they don't hit 100 again, that, I mean, that would be the possibility that nothing would have to be done. And figuring out, you know, the area that might need to be, if it stays at 100 or greater, what area would need to be, you know, how much soil would potentially need to be removed.
And that's the Fuss and O'Neill part. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
But, and so Mass DEP would go along with new numbers, so to speak. In other words, if another core was done and they said, oh, it's not 100, it's below 100, I guess we don't have to do anything, and they would go for, you know, I'm not quite sure what.
It's not one boring. They will be doing 10 or 12 borings.
In that B9 area.
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
they will be doing in-depth exploration of that whole
Okay.
site.
Okay.
And originally we did one test at one point. So,
Mhm.
yeah, and Mass DEP is, yeah, we've been in communication with them. Mary Ann's been in communication with them, making sure that the scope of work that has been requested of Fuss and O'Neill is sufficient for what they think needs to be done at this point.
Are Fuss and O'Neill a little bit more reliable than OTO? Because, you know, OTO has been getting rather bad press lately, as you know.
I believe that press is, you know, press is press, and, you know, Shutesbury also got a year of very bad press. And I believe OTO did some very good work for us. And they did historical data that we are all, you know, all the new
Yeah, that's true.
wetland special, I mean, LSPs are using, that is very solid. I do not question OTO's professional abilities.
Mhm.
And this is ARPA money? Is ARPA money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
ARPA money is going into paying for this, as opposed to Friends of the Library money.
Yes.
Okay, I think we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is committee report. So I guess before we get into that, do we all feel like we are just going to continue to represent the FinCom on our various committees that we contributed to last year? Does anybody feel like we need to make any changes to the committee assignments? Or can I assume that, yeah, Bob?
You're on mute.
Happy to continue on the capital planning committee with you, AJ. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that as well. Susie, I feel like in some ways the school committee is kind of maybe the most labor intensive. Are you comfortable carrying on in that role? Or what are you thinking? Yep, okay. All right, so it doesn't sound like there's anybody that is feeling motivated to make any changes. So let's just assume that we're all going to represent FinCom on the same committee. So with that said, has anybody since our last July 12th, have any committees met? Just raise your hand if you have a committee update to share. George?
Yeah, the personnel board has been meeting. Basically, we've updated the job descriptions for 3 positions, all which are, well, two of them are currently vacant, although the fire chief job description is about to be completed. We just updated the job description for the fire chief. Will be used in as a part of the negotiation that Becky was referring to, the contract. We finished the job description for the administrative assistant and for the highway superintendent. There's been no word about when the highway superintendent's going to retire, but that's been updated. And that's pretty much all we've done. A couple minor things, but those were the big things.
Well, it took 3 hours to do one job description, so they've been working hard.
Oh, it was a 3-hour meeting. It was unbelievable. But we did a good job. We got it. The committee works great. It's a good committee. Everybody makes really good contributions. You know, Melody is also our representative on the committee, and she's made really good contributions as well. So it's a good committee. I'm really happy about the work they're doing. So I'm glad to be a part of it for another year, is my point.
Great. Okay, any other committees meet since our July 12th meeting? Is that it? Okay. All right, I think we've done pretty well on time. George, yeah.
Yeah, there's one thing I wanted to bring up and bring to everybody's attention. And I was hoping Becky would kind of correct me if I'm wrong or confirm what I think I saw. If we have time, there was just one issue, AJ.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Yeah, so I went online the other day to the DOR website and looked at the cherry sheets. And it looks like the cherry sheets are final because once I saw that the budgets were approved, I went to look at the cherry sheets and I was pleasantly surprised by what I saw, Becky. I don't know if you noticed the same thing, but I came up with, it looks like the estimate that we had of $869,000 is really going to be $894,000. So it looks like we're picking up $25,000 in revenue that we were not counting on when we submitted or presented the budget. And that's based on the cherry sheet that I found for the town of Shutesbury.
You're talking about UGA? No.
I'm talking about, it was a lot of things. If you want, I can share my screen. I've got it right
Oh,
here.
yeah. I think I came up with about 20,000.
I got 25,371,
Okay.
Becky. If you want, I can share my screen real quick and you can see
That
what I
would-
got.
That would be, yeah. So that's an important thing.
Yeah, please, George.
Okay, as soon as I'm able.
All right, let's, can I do that?
I think I did send everybody got the cherry sheet
No, I'm
information.
talking about the screens. I just, for some reason, when I
Wait,
was
I
reading
have to give George permission. I'm
information,
sorry.
yes. Okay, so 2 things. One, this is what I found on the website. This is a screenshot of it. So Becky, does this look like what's the current?
Yes,
So if I use these numbers, I come up with these here.
Yep.
So this is what we were presenting as a part of our budget. This is what the state is reporting. So I'm sorry here, let me hide some columns so we can see our headings. So chapter 70, it looks like we're picking up $3,000. This tuition reimbursement, $10,000. And then UGA, there's 5. I wonder if that's a mistype, $12.
no, it's not, unfortunately. It's always
Okay.
that low.
No, it's 142. That is a mistype, Becky.
Oh,
That's
I'm-
what it should be. That's what it should be. So I apologize for that. I should have caught that. 1942. So nothing new there. And then state-owned lands went up by $6,000. I was very pleasantly surprised to see. So 25.5, it looks like
Yeah.
is going, what we thought was going to be an increase in levy is not going to happen.
Hey, George?
Jim, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what about on the cost side? Was there any changes on the cost side or just pickups on the revenue side?
I think that's why his number is different from mine. I think there was an increase in,
Should I have
Sorry.
gone all the way down? See,
Expensive.
this is why I
Next
wanted Becky
page.
involved.
Yeah, it's a separate,
Go
There's
to
a
the
separate
second
page.
page. I think that's why Susie and I came up with 20.
Oh, okay. So I'm missing something here. I apologize for that. I'll go and look at it again and educate myself. So Becky, you're saying it's 20,000, not 25.
yeah, so there's 5,000 of additional costs. It sounds like what Becky and Susie are saying. Roughly.
All right, I won't go there now, but I will definitely check it out. I apologize for that. So, all right, so it's not 25, and this is why I wanted Becky to look, honestly.
Susie, did you have
Yeah.
some information to share?
And there was a sentence he said, it will not increase. Oh, you said it about how it might affect the levy, but that's not true. If we get more state aid, it doesn't change our tax levy. It just adds to our free cash.
No. Doesn't the assessor use the state's cherry sheet number to calculate how much needs to be raised from property taxes?
Yes, they do. What goes into the recap is the cherry sheet. So when Susie asked me the question, I was thinking she was asking a different question.
Okay,
My apologies, Susie.
all right. So it will go on to the recap sheet and that will change the tax levy.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
But not to the extent that I thought, but still pretty good. $20,000 is not small.
And some years we come in, our negative numbers instead of, so to have it come in positive is fabulous because it means we're not higher than we thought.
Yeah, and I think, right. So anyways, I just wanted to make everybody aware that the cherry sheet, just want everybody to know that the cherry sheets are out and it looks like Shutesbury benefited.
That's great.
I'll stop sharing.
Thanks for,
But that doesn't necessarily mean a trend, does it? I mean, so when we go to project next year, when we go to project how the state's thinking, does that mean we'll be looking at sort of an increase that we can count on?
Probably not because they've been playing with a lot of more money than usual.
yeah, so maybe those assumptions can revert back to the original.
Well,
Will they come off of the early predictions in the end of
right,
January? or
right.
something?
We'll have information at that time that we can use to judge whether it's gonna stay the same or go down.
I see, yeah.
So the governor's budget's usually the first one.
So George, do you think that this increase that we're seeing on the cherry sheets is sort of complementary to our governor's wish to lower taxes for most people? And,
I really,
apparently there's just tons of money in Boston that he's trying to find a way to spend. I kind of wish they pour it more into the schools rather than just shoveling a little bit of a tax deduction out to people. I don't know. It's kind of
I
crazy.
agree. I think way too much of the way too much of education falls on the
Yeah.
property tax owners. Everybody knows.
Exactly.
That's what creates high tax base in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bob, did you want to say something?
yeah, one thing to note here is that some of these items in the cherry sheet are variable year to year because of particular circumstances in the town. For example, Chapter 70 money is based upon our enrollment, and so we get aid for our students based upon our enrollment. If our enrollment shifts up or down next year, then our Chapter 70 money is going to change. But our state-owned land, which Kevin told us is got a higher payment in lieu of taxes than before, that the state had decided to increase that number. That's going to be permanent. That's going to be permanent next year. The same number of acres of land and the same price per acre. So some of it will stay and some of it will change. I mean, it changes every year.
Yeah, but just so you're clear, Bob, that line, state-owned lands, it's not the same as property on payment in lieu of taxes. It's a different kind of thing.
Its own category, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but it's not the same line. But yeah, there's a lot of conversation out there in the state about increasing pilot money. When you look at our revenue schedule and you go across the lines year to year to year to year, what's the largest item that never goes up? I think it's payment in lieu of taxes. That's the one revenue item that's not growing with inflation, and it's hurting us because it's just not as helpful as it used to be, while our expenses continue to rise.
I know the legislators are lobbying hard to change that,
Yep.
especially with the Quabbin land.
Yep.
Yeah, except that most of the legislatures don't live west of 495.
The current legislatures, we have legislators are, I just had a couple meetings with them in the last week or so, and they are pushing hard and getting a few things
Great.
done.
They seem to be doing a really good job. Do you think if the lieutenant governor, the next lieutenant governor was living in Western Massachusetts, that was from Western Massachusetts, that could benefit our town,
Sure,
benefit us?
Didn't help us much when Jane Swift was governor.
that's for sure.
Let me just say, we have a new.
Good point.
We have a new district that is up for grabs this fall, and it's kind of an interesting district. I mean, it is basically a Quabbin district. It goes from Ludlow up to Petersham, and there's a lot of state-owned land in that district. And our representative will be representing communities that really are tied together because they're the Swift River watershed. All of them, I think. Every single one of the towns is in that watershed. So it's kind of interesting. I know it's not taking us out of Franklin County, and it's going to change. I don't know what's going to happen to our rep, whether she's going to be still running as First Franklin or whatever it's called, but we're in a new district starting this fall.
Yep.
Jim?
Becky, this is an odd question, fairly esoteric. Would you know whether the Shutesbury forest, Shutesbury owns a lot of land. I don't know whether Shutesbury actually owns it or not, but there is the Shutesbury forest. Is that a part of the MDC land? Are the two combined, or do we not get that pilot money because it's the Shutesbury forest?
I believe about 30 years ago, the Shutesbury Forest was turned over
To
to
the-
DCR.
Okay, all right. That's if that's the case, then we don't have to worry about it because it's marked on topo map. Shutesbury Forest is a very large piece of land.
Yeah, I remember it, and
Yeah.
but it was it's not Shutesbury's anymore.
Yeah.
Which means they should be giving us more money.
Yes, exactly. That's just what I was thinking.
Yep.
All we do is charge them for the water. That's it.
Yeah.
Becoming quite a commodity right now. It should be going up
That's
like
right.
gas.
Yeah.
Susie?
I looked at the draft letter we made for the budget request last year, and it was reviewed at our September 22nd meeting. And we definitely want to get that letter out in a timely fashion. So I wonder if, I know it should be on the next agenda, but the date for the next meeting should reflect giving us enough time to maybe look at the past and make our revisions and maybe get it approved at our next meeting.
Susie, would you be able to share last year's, I'm sure we have it in our files somewhere, but if you
Can email it out
yeah, that'd be great.
and
So I think that is our next our bit of business is to just schedule the next meeting. So are we thinking maybe like early September is the right time for our next meeting?
I think so.
Okay.
Right after Labor Day sometime.
Yeah, let's see. Sorry, I'm just pulling up my calendar.
I'm not as fancy as you are, AJ. I'm not going to Nantucket, but I'm going to the Vineyard.
Ah.
The 5th to the 17th or something, but I think I'll have some kind of a connection there, but
So the 6th is a Tuesday. I know, Becky, do you know when the SB is meeting?
Yeah, we're meeting 2nd, 16th, 30th. So if FinCom would meet on the 6th, that would be great.
Mhm.
Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
What's that date again?
September
Hey,
6th.
September 6th, 6:30.
And I'll send out last year's letter and people can take stab at what they want to bring to the meeting.
I might not be able to make that meeting, but that's all right.
We'll see.
And I'll also include the
Form.
schedule, yeah, and the schedule that we used last year for when we met with people. And we might want to think about, does that need to start any earlier? If we could get the letter out, it might get to start earlier.
All right, so at our next meeting, Jim, did you have a?
No, I wrap up the next meeting's process first. I just had a separate item.
Okay, got it. All right, so at our next meeting, we're gonna prepare the budget request letter and discuss the budget calendar.
Yep.
Okay. All right, and that meeting is gonna be on, so what do we think, on the 6th? Is that gonna work? It's gonna, might not work for George, but
Right.
It may not work for me either, but I'll do what I can do when I get down there. If I can-
You can also send in your edits, proposals to AJ.
I'm sorry, if two members, I mean,
Yeah.
potentially 3 members could be out, that would not be a good meeting.
Who's the 3?
Well, we don't know if Melody could make it.
well,
If George and Bob are out,
what does the 13th look like?
Well,
George.
Bob said he didn't know if he would be out.
Oh, I see.
I don't know, right? I'm gonna have to get down there and see how I'm set up for accommodations and connections and stuff, but
The 13th must be when the select board meets.
the select board meets on the 13th, so I would request the 20th. If it turns out that you have 2 or 3 people missing.
We could schedule it for the 6th and then have to cancel it if we don't have enough attendees.
All right, so the problem though, Bob, it sounds like you might not actually, your issue has more to do with what your capacity is gonna be,
yeah, I'm not
Well,
really sure.
and you're not really gonna know until you're there, right? I mean,
That's
so,
You could join by phone. Phone might be more reliable.
yeah. Okay, the only other thought I had was, George, would you, if we did Wednesday the 7th, does that help you or no? that's-
No, I'm away that week.
Okay, got it. All right, let's, I think we should keep the 6th then as our plan. George, if you could send any, any suggestions that you have on the budget letter.
And I'll see if I can move, and maybe I can make it. It might be a stretch, but I might be able to attend. But yes, I will do that.
Okay, well, I think what we'll do is we'll find out, I'll reach out to Melody, see if she has any conflicts on the 6th. If she does have a conflict on the 6th, I might just make the judgment call to postpone that meeting to the 20th. Just because that really, we then run the risk if Bob has internet problem or communication problems, then the 6th might actually not be workable. So let's plan on the 6th for now, and we'll see what Melody's availability is. Okay, and I think other than the goal of drafting a updated budget letter and making our calendar for budget meetings, are there any other topics that we wanted to add to the agenda, Bob?
I'd just like to suggest that we continue our conversation about the process this year and see if we can, just continue, have that part of our agenda. Talk about how we proceed. And I think that'd be useful to do that early on, and this is early on, so why not go over it and make sure it's a general agreement about how we do business.
Okay. So we'll have a discussion about the FY23 budget process and sort of best, 24, and kind of just the sort of best practices that we want to implement this year. Okay, and Jim, did you have something you wanted to raise?
Yeah, just a fast one. I just happened to stop by town hall today, and during our last meeting, we did approve all of the
Transfers.
the transfers.
Oh,
We all need to sign off on the document
Oh,
that's in our finance committee mailbox. And I just noticed today that we've probably been all doing summer stuff.
Yeah.
So
there was, Jim Walton has signed it. There's one signature on.
Okay.
is that a good enough?
that's all we need.
Not legally.
No.
Fine with me.
Yeah, so, yeah, so if everybody could stop by sometime next time they're in the area there.
All right.
I gotta do it tomorrow.
Becky, I'm back on Friday, so if that's okay, I'll just come in on Friday.
That'd be great. And if you're in town hall, stop by and say hello.
All right. Okay,
everyone. Thank you.
I make a motion, we adjourn this meeting.
Second,
all right, let's vote. George,
Cabernet say.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, eye.
Mosier, aye.
Walt and I.
Thank you very much.
AJ, have a great vacation.
Thanks,
There you
appreciate it.
are.
Yeah, enjoy.
I'm back for the last minute. Thanks, guys.
Well
Bye-bye.
done, AJ.
See ya.
Okay, appreciate it.
Have
Talk
a
to you
good night.
soon. Bye.
Good night, everybody.
good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Call me, George.
I will, but it may be a while, Jim, because I'm actually going away on Thursday for a week, but I will catch you towards the end of the month.
Yeah, I have a lot to tell you.
I'm sure you do. I've been hearing a lot from other people too, so, but I definitely want to talk to you. That sounds wonderful.
Okay.
I didn't make it to Everest, but I did trek in Nepal when I was in high school. So I'm tingling with excitement for you too, George.
Yeah, thank you.
And
That's,
and Jim Hemingway, knowing that you had
Yeah.
that adventure.
I've gone there 3 times. So
wow, Jim, what inspires that?
1994, 95, and 96, and 3 different treks to 3 different parts of Nepal.
So did you go up to Annapurna?
No, I didn't do the Annapurna trek, which is the common one. The Everest trek was my first trek. That was my first entry into Nepal. And I spent